and the evil spirit. Yeah, that's Acts 19. So, and they did the same thing Paul did. Matter of fact, they mentioned Paul in there trying to cast out an evil spirit from a brother. 7 brothers tried to do it. And their father was a priest, so they was church people. But they didn't have no power. Why? Because they wasn't obeying God. It had to be a difference. The Bible said, let everyone that name the name of Christ depart from iniquity. So they called on the name of Christ. They said in Acts 19, you read on your own, they said, we adjure you. They were speaking to the evil spirit that was in the man. We adjure you by Jesus, whom Paul preaches. So they hit the nail on the head. They didn't make they didn't miss no beat at all. They had the right Jesus. If you thought they could have the wrong one, they clarified. They said the one that Paul preaching. But they didn't have no power. Why? Because they wasn't obeying God. That's what the power is. And that's why the evil spirit spoke through the man and said, Jesus I know, Paul I know, but who are you? And whooped on them and beat them, ran them out the house naked. One man beat up seven brothers and ran them out. They lost their clothes on the way trying to get away from that one man who they call himself casting the evil spirit out of. But this is what he's saying here. Having a form of godly, but denying the power thereof, from such turn away. Now, let's go to Luke 17, because it boils down, brothers and sisters, it's bringing us to the end of time. That's why Paul said, in the last days, perilous times shall come. The last days. See, eventually it's got to end. The world can't keep going on. A lot of people don't even have a concept of how the world going in. The best a lot of church people have heard is that there's going to be a rapture. They're going to heaven somewhere. They're going to be taken up. That's a lie. Now, you need to have what the Bible is saying so you are prepared. Because if you're not prepared for times to get worse and worse, you're in for a rude awakening. We living in the worst time ever, and you think it's bad now, it's only going to get worse. Even Jesus gave you an indication. Jesus gave you a good indication. Luke 17 and verse 22. Luke 17 and verse 22. Go ahead.
And he said unto the disciples, the days will come when ye shall desire to see one of the days of the Son of Man, and ye shall not see it. And they shall say to you, see here, or see there. Go not after them, nor follow them.
Okay, so now Jesus told his disciples, and again, this informs us that as time went on, from Jesus' time on, like Paul said, in the last days, perilous times are going to come. This informs us again that in the future, Jesus letting the disciples know, in the future, it's going to get worse. Wasn't supposed to get better. See, some of these preachers lying, acting like everything is rosy, dandy. They casting out devils. They doing everything that Jesus and the apostles doing. They are lying. In other words, things had to go south. They had to go downhill. It had to get worse. And we're down to the end, the worst time ever. And before the end, it's going to get worse and worse until the end. So what did Jesus tell the disciples? We hear in Luke 17, verse 22, Jesus said what? He said to his disciples, the days will come. That means they wasn't there yet. The days will come when ye shall desire to see one of the days of the Son of Man, and ye shall not see it. So he was letting them know, look, you're going to be longing for me in one of the days. Like, you know, he was right there among them then. He said, you're going to be longing. And this is all the way down to us. We need to long for Jesus now. You shall desire to see one of the days of the Son of Man, and shall not see it. And then he said, they shall say to you, see there, go not after them. See here or there, go not after them, nor follow them. See, we waiting on the Lord to come even to this day. But we're not going to follow no lies. Okay? Go ahead to what verse you at?
Verse 24.
Go ahead.
For as the lightning that lighteneth out of one part under the heaven shineth unto the other part under heaven, so shall also the Son of Man be in his day.
See, this is how it is when he come back. For as the lightning lighted out of one part under heaven, shine unto the other part under heaven, so shall also the Son of Man be in his day. Because he not going to sneak back and you don't know he back. I found that out years ago, some people telling me, well, the Messiah is back. I'm like, well, I don't know. Well, I don't know that he back. That wasn't making no sense to me. So, this what he letting you know, he going to come like the lightning, in other words. But go ahead, 25.
But first must he suffer many things and be rejected of this generation. And as it was
now, before he come back, he had to die, suffer, go through, and be killed, and resurrect. So first he must suffer many things and be rejected of this generation. So we know that went on. That wasn't no accident. That's the way it had to be. Go ahead, and then go ahead, 26.
And as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be also in the days of the Son of Man.
See? He taking you back to how it was when the Lord flooded the earth. See, all this lets you know we talking about some terrible times. That was terrible. The Lord drowned everybody. We living in terrible times. It's only going to get worse. He said, so he's comparing his second coming, times leading up to his second coming, these perilous times that we living in, he's comparing it to the second coming. He's comparing it, to the days of Noah, how it was then. But go ahead.
They did eat, they drank, they married wives, they were given in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark and the flood came and destroyed them all.
So now, look at what he told you. He said they ate, drank, they went about business as usual, in other words, in the days of Noah. But keep in mind, he's comparing it to the second coming of Jesus. As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be also in the days of the Son of Man. They ate, they drank, they married wives. Business as usual. They didn't know they was about to all drown. Go ahead, until what? Until the day that Noah, go ahead.
Until the day Noah entered into the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all.
And the flood came and destroyed them all. But the key here, brothers and sisters, people have made light of the second coming of Jesus. They don't know. Times preceding all the way down to his second coming, the worst time the world has ever seen. Terrible times. Death and destruction. And that's why he's comparing it to the worst time the world has seen back then in Noah's time, where the Lord destroyed all flesh. And the Lord is the one did it. The Lord's still in control. He let man go so far, and then he take over and deal with them. So they didn't get it back then, and this lets you know they're not going to get it now till it's all said and done. Go ahead.
Likewise also as it was in the days of Lot. They did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they builded. But the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all.
See, they ate, they drank, they did everything as normal, just like the days of Noah. He compared it, now he's comparing it to the days of Lot. They doing the same thing. Likewise, as it was in the days of Lot. That was Sodom and Gomorrah, where he destroyed them. He didn't flood them out. He burned them with fire and brimstone. They ate, they drank, they brought, they sowed, they planted, they built. Verse 29, read that again.
But the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all.
See, the Lord know how to get his own people out the way before he bring destruction. He got Noah on the ark. He got Lot out of Sodom. And then that's when the fire and brimstone destroyed them all. But now, you say, what does that have to do with the last days, the end of the world, the times we live in? It's the same thing. It was the end of the world in Noah's time. The world clearly ended, and God started from scratch with 8 people. That was the end of the world for that day. Everybody else died. That was the end, figuratively speaking. That was the end of the world. It wasn't the world. It was just Sodom and Gomorrah, but that was the end for them. And only Lot and his 2 daughters got saved. So what does that have to do with us? Well, he going to tell you, verse 30.
Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed.
See, he said you're going to desire to see one of the days of the Son of Man, and you should not see it. And you're going to have to go through all of this terrible times until it's time for him to come. But it's going to be bad, bad, bad until we get there. Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. What is going to be? 31.
And that day, he which shall be upon the housetop and his stuff in the house, let him not come down to take it away. And he that is in the field, let him likewise not return back. Remember Lot's wife.
See what he said? Don't even go back. It's going to be so urgent. Don't go back in your house to get nothing, because it's going to be a time to throw caution to the wind. If you're in the field, don't go back. Don't do none of that. Then he said one last thing, and we're going to move on from here, 32. Remember Lot's wife. Now, if you go back to Genesis around the 19th chapter, you see what happened. She got caught up in the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, even though she had a chance to flee, because she didn't obey. She didn't follow the instructions. The angel told him, run, don't look back. She looked back and she died. She turned to a pillar of salt, the Bible says. Most people heard of that. But can you imagine Jesus giving us a message about the last days? So it all boils down. We living in terrible times. Let's go to Amos 5. Amos 5. Because a lot of brothers and sisters might be saying, I can't wait till the Lord come. Well, we want him to come, but you got to understand what comes with that, what that brings. And that's all this trouble. Amos 5 and verse 18. Go ahead and read it.
Woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord.
See, the day of the Lord is a terrible day. This is what people ain't get. And you got preachers that smooth it over, have people, well, don't worry about the Lord going to rapture you to heaven. I'm going to tell you, the rapture is a bold-faced lie. And you going to have to figure out how to deal with this. And the Lord give you instruction, just like Lot in Sodom and Gomorrah, just like Noah at the flood, you're going to have to work your way out of it. And the Lord will show you how, but it's not no swooped-up rapture. Forget about that. It's a way, and we can get into that in other lessons, but you're going to have your own homework to do on that. So he said, woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord. Why? Go ahead.
To what end is it for you?
See, what does that mean for you? See, if you understand even the second coming of Jesus, it is not nothing nice about it. You know, the nice part, of course, he's going to save his people that's doing his will, that's obeying. So that is not, but overall is terrible. It's the climax of these perilous times. The climax of this worst time ever. To what end is it for you? He going to tell you, go ahead.
The day of the Lord is darkness and not light.
See, the day of the Lord is darkness and not light. Go ahead.
As if a man did flee from a lion, and a bear met him, or went into the house and leaned in his hand on the wall, and the serpent bit him.
So he gave you a nice little comparison. He said, this is how the day of the Lord is. You know, you think you got it bad now, just like it can always get worse. People be crying and moaning and whining and complaining about bad situations. And they could be in a bad situation. They could be having some issues. But if you can't do nothing about it, ain't no need of crying to everybody and complaining about it. Try to do what you can, and whatever, if you done what you can to fix it, then, hey, let the Lord do the rest. But not knowing, like the children of Israel, when they came out of Egypt, They was crying. You know, they was in the wilderness. They didn't like that situation. They was crying, oh, we want some food. We out here. We ain't got nothing to eat. We want some meat. They was crying, and complaining, and that just made the Lord mad. He made it worse for them. Things can always get worse. They went from crying about not having nothing to eat to some fire burning on them. They would have gladly took back that just having an empty stomach than having an empty stomach and getting burnt on. That's what happened to him. So he telling you about the day of the Lord. You might say, well, I can't wait till it get, you know, because some people kind of might hope for bad times. I can't wait. I want something bad to happen. I can't wait. Look, you're going to have to deal with something bad when it do happen. You know, even all this stuff that the Lord bring it. So you shouldn't be hoping for just no straight up drama on somebody else, because one way or another, you're going to have to deal with it too. You around. You got to deal with it. So this is why he phrasing it this way, brothers and sisters. Verse 18, read it again. Verse 18, we had Amos 5 and 18. Go ahead, read it.
Woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord.
See, somebody might desire the day of the Lord. You hoping for some drama to fall, maybe fall on some people, whatever. Woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord. Go ahead.
To what end is it for you?
To what end is it for you? Go ahead.
The day of the Lord is darkness and not light.
As if what?
As if a man did flee from a lion and the bear met him.
See, you thought it was bad. You running from a lion and you got away from the lion and the bear. You ran right into the bear. Go ahead.
Or went into the house and leaned his hand on the wall, and a serpent bit him.
See, you might have been trying to get away and finally got into the house. You thought you were safe. You went to the house. You said, "Woo, I got away from it." And you lean on the wall and a snake bites you. So it's gonna be. It can get worse. And but he's talking about the times that we living in, leading up to the day of the Lord. Go ahead.
Shall not the day of the Lord be darkness?
That's right.
And not light?
Uh-huh.
Even very dark, and no brightness in it.
Terrible time. Matter of fact, it's the worst time ever. Go to Zephaniah. Zephaniah 1, and we're going to pick it up at verse 14. Then we're going to get into some of the intricacies or details of these last days, which is Bible is talking about the day of the Lord. That's the day when the Lord is about to put his stamp on the world and take it over, but until he complete it, it's going trouble. Zephaniah.
Look for it.
Zephaniah 1. That's why, again, we leading up to the time when the Lord going to do his thing, and it is obvious that we living in some bad times. Everything, you name it, is happening. That's why you can't go nobody. If the Lord ain't on your side, you can't even plan to avoid every bad situation that can happen to you in this world. You know, you could do your best to prepare. You can try to avoid certain place. You could do your best. You get shot anywhere. Anything is liable to happen anywhere. That's why I understand what he means. If the Lord don't keep the house, he said, you know, he said a watchman, you know, because they had people that watch to even countries, you know, just like you got armies. Where back in the day they had armies, and they had somebody that was on watch duty, just like they got them on bases and stuff like that. They on watch duty, and it was their job to watch for trouble coming, enemy coming. But the Bible said, except the Lord keep the city, or keep the house, or keep the city, the watchman waketh but in vain. So in other words, if the Lord not on your side, the watchman can be on his job. He can lose all kind of sleep, stand up on the midnight shift, watching to make sure everything is straight. But the Bible says if the Lord not keeping the city, hey, the watchman, it's a waste of time. So if the Lord not with you, it don't matter. It do not matter. It's like he said, if the Lord don't build a house. So that's the same thing with you. Some people might get caught up, say, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get in shape, I'm going to get me some guns. I'm going to do this. I'm going to watch it. Look, you still get shot. Still get hit by a car. Anything. So your best bet is to find out about the Lord and go about pleasing him. Then he can look out for you. He can have them angels around you when the trouble do hit. Zephaniah 1 and 14. Zephaniah 1 and 14. Read it, my brother.
The great day of the Lord is near. It is near, and hasty greatly. Even the voice of the day of the Lord. The mighty man shall cry there bitterly.
See, look at what he said. The great day of the Lord is near, and it's nearer than ever now. It is near, it hasted greatly. I mean, coming quick. Even the voice of the day of the Lord, the mighty man shall cry there bitterly. See, those with power, mighty, he said they're going to cry bitterly. What kind of day is it? Verse 15.
That day is a day of wrath.
It's a day of wrath. See, people done watered down the Bible. They watered down the end of the world, watered down the second coming of Jesus. You try to tell somebody how bad the second coming, I ain't got to worry about it. I'm going to get raptured. You a rapture lie, you're going to have to deal with it. If you living, you're going to have to deal with it. All the saints going to be in heaven. Bold-faced lie. Saints going to die in these terrible times. Saints are going to die. And if you call yourself a saint, you need to know that. So he said, the day of the Lord, he said, that day is a day of wrath, a day of what?
A day of trouble and distress.
A day of trouble and distress. See, Paul wasn't playing when he said in the last days, perilous times shall come. Perilous just means troublous, trouble. Trouble abounds in this world. He even tell you, why don't nobody want to obey the Lord? Sin is prevailing. That's why Jesus said the love of many shall wax cold, because iniquity is all over the place. He said that day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress. What else?
A day of wasteness and desolation.
A day of wasteness and desolation. Go ahead.
A day of darkness and gloominess.
See, you don't get this in the average church because they want to tell you about a sunny day. Like it's just sunny, all the sun is shining, it's beautiful, the Lord is with you. You know, you're going to have prosperity. It's all good. But see, they have a whole lot of trouble. As time go on, the harder it get, they have a whole lot of trouble spending that. Just like when the economy had collapsed a little bit some years ago, I'm looking at some of these false preachers. They was really they were struggling to pass that off because people hurting even just from the economy. They was hurting. And some of them false preachers been preaching prosperity. Only thing they could say, some of them, I watched them, some of them was saying, see, y'all listening to that stuff they tell you about the economy. Don't believe it. Look, dude, people losing their houses, they losing their job, they losing their 401k. What you mean don't believe it? But they trying to spin it because you done hyped everything up on a lie, on a beautiful sunny day. So you're not ready for the gloomy day. It's just like I read recently where he told you in Micah, the first chapter, that the people was waiting for good to come. They waited carefully for good. They just waiting, they know it's coming. Oh, my pastor say it's coming, my ship coming in. And then he said, but evil came down from the Lord. They wasn't ready for it. Same thing here. He said it's a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess. Go ahead.
A day of clouds and thick darkness.
Go ahead.
A day of the trumpets and alarms against the fenced cities and against the high towers.
Go ahead.
And I will bring distress upon men.
He said, I will bring distress upon men. That's what God is in the business of doing. Why? Because men don't want to listen to God. That's why he brings distress. That's why you likely to get shot anywhere. He said, I will bring distress upon men. Go ahead.
That they shall walk like blind men because they have sinned against the Lord.
That's the reason why. Because they have sinned against the Lord. Go ahead.
And their blood shall be poured out as dust, and their flesh as the dung. Neither their silver nor their gold shall be able to deliver them in the day of the Lord's wrath.
See, people caught up on trying to get money. Your money can't save you. You worried about the wrong thing. You better get right with God. Go ahead.
but the whole land shall be devoured by the fire of his jealousy. For he shall make even a speedy riddance of all them that dwell in the land.
Okay, let's go to Matthew 24, and now we're going to start getting into some particulars on how it's going to be. Some of the specifics that's going to happen, because the Lord give you specific signs to know where you at and what you need to do, what time it is. We are living in the worst time ever. And from here, it's only going to get worse. We living in perilous times. And the longer we live, the worse it's going to get until Jesus come back and climax these terrible times. See, he told you here, though. Matthew 24, the disciples asked Jesus point blank, and he told them. Verse 3, read it.
And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world?
See, Jesus told them about how it was unbeknownst to them that Jerusalem was going to get destroyed because they thought Jesus was there to fix it. He wasn't there to fix it that day. He's going to fix it in our days, in the end. So, after he explained to them there won't be one stone left upon another, they said, okay, when this is going to happen? And furthermore, because he let them know in other places, other times, that he's going to have to come back a second time and restore everything. So that's why they said, tell us when shall these things be, meaning the destruction of Jerusalem. But they asked a two-part question, and what shall be the sign of thy coming? See, they knew already he had to come back because he explained. He told them. He told them he was going to die, be killed, just like we was reading in Luke 17. He said, you're going to desire to see one of my days and not going to see it. But before all that get here, I got to suffer and be rejected of this generation. But then that set the stage for a second coming. That's all that do. That set the stage for a second coming. So he said, what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? See, the world is going to end, brothers and sisters, as we know it. No matter, don't believe the hype, no matter what people make you think, the world is going to end. And it's coming soon. We getting close to the end. Well, that's what they asked him. What Jesus say? Go ahead.
And Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you.
Now they asked him for signs, and the first sign he gave them is beware of deception. And we got much deception in the world now. Even in church, you can't even go to church and find none of this stuff out. That shows you it's deception running rampant. But that's the first sign Jesus gave you of the end, because they asked for the sign of his coming and the end of the world. He said, you want it? Take heed that no man deceive you. And he going to follow it up. Why?
For many shall come in my name.
That means they're going to come in Jesus' name. Go ahead.
Saying, I am Christ. And shall deceive many.
See, it don't matter if they come representing Jesus or, and professing that he is the Christ. It don't matter. They can still be lying to you, and a lot of them are. He said, many too. Many going to come in my name saying, I am Christ. See, you got so many preachers preaching Jesus, yet lying to people. That's why, as a whole, we don't know about none of this stuff. We don't know how bad times are. We used to times. You know, we kind of immune to it because bad stuff been going on for so long. It get worse, and we adapt to it. But we should understand this is what the Bible talking about. That's what let me know what time we living in. The worst time ever, the end. Perilous times. So that's the first. Number one sign he gave. Take heed that no man deceive you. Why? For many shall come in my name saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive men. That's number one. What else?
And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars.
And you're going to hear wars and rumors. This is signs of the end. The first one, number one, deception. Nobody paying attention to that. Number two, wars and rumors where people see that, and a lot of people can relate and say, yeah, we living in the end, but they still don't understand the magnitude. This is what bring perilous time. But we saw in Timothy that the origin of the perilous time is don't nobody love nobody. Everybody lovers of their own self. It's only about them. They don't want to obey God. They don't want to love their neighbor as they self. They don't want to love God. Everybody want to do their own thing. Well, this is the result of doing your own thing. Perilous times. You're going to hear wars and rumors of wars. What else?
See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet.
Go ahead.
For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines, and pestilence, and earthquakes in diverse places.
Go ahead.
All these are the beginnings of sorrow.
See, terrible times. You name it is bad. What did he say? He said wars, rumors of wars, Trump, and he said, don't be troubled. This is just the beginning of it. And that's where we at now. But the end is not yet. So again, I keep emphasizing it's going to get worse and worse. You know, you can't go nowhere now without the chance of getting shot. And I'm telling you, the Bible is telling you it's going to get worse. But it's a result of mankind not wanting to obey God. That's why it's global. It's not just in one particular neighborhood. You can't confine trouble like that. Even if somebody did something intentionally to try to put some trouble over here, yeah, you put it over here, you tried to make some trouble happen over there, that trouble going to spread to your own backyard. The Bible tell you that. The Bible say you reap what you sow. The Bible say he that diggeth a ditch shall fall into it. So you can't limit it. It's worldwide. That's why he said you're going to hear wars, rumors of wars. But that's not the end yet. Why? Verse 7. And then verse 7, read that again.
For nation shall rise against nation.
And we see that. Kingdoms fighting. So, of course, when you get down to our little level, individual, you know individuals fighting. Whole nations fighting each other. Shaking their fists at each other, talking all kind of stuff. Presidents talking stuff to each other. You ain't going to do nothing. I'll blow you off the map. All kind of stuff. This people is supposed to be ruling the world. So, you know, we're going to be down here on our little level trying to fight each other. You're going to hear wars, rumors of wars, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. All kind of bad stuff. He mentioned famine, starvation, diseases, which is pestilence, earthquakes all over the place. He said this is the beginning. See, we at the beginning now. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I said that earlier. Let's skip down, though, because we're going to hit one of the most important signs, and we're going to understand it. Because if we're going to understand the worst time ever, we really want to know exactly what opens the door to that. Because this is just the beginning where we at now. The chance of going to Walmart and get shot, this is just the beginning. It's going to get much worse than this. Go ahead, verse 15.
When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand.
Now this is an all-important sign. You can't even make light of this. Because Jesus said, whoso readeth, let him understand. The abomination of desolation, he told you, Daniel spoke about it. We're going to get back to that. But this is it. He said, whoso readeth, let him understand. And the average person been in church all their life, don't have a clue. And it's showing you all over the Bible. But if you don't know what it is, if you're listening somewhere now, online, you're going to find out tonight what it is. Or if you watch this later on in the daytime, you're going to find out today. Because we're going to read the Bible and let the Bible explain it, because Jesus wants you to know. Jesus said it. When you therefore see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in a holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. That's how important this is. Why do you need to know about it? What should you do when you see it? Wait on the rapture, say, oh Lord, I know you're going to rapture me now. Let's see, 16.
Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains.
Told you, it's a way to get away from when it get the worst time, when it really heats up. Because this is going to kick off the worst time ever. We leading up to it now. It's a way to get out of it, but it's going to take some due diligence on your part, just like it took some due diligence for Noah to get away from that flood. He had to build that ark and get on it. It took some due diligence for Lot to get away from that fire in Sodom. And his wife didn't even make it because she was hard-headed. So they had to do something, though. You got to do something. Jesus said, when you see this, and if you don't know what it is, how can you make that move? When you see this, flee. Flee into some mountains. Go ahead. And
17.
the Lord gonna show you he got a place that he can take care of you on this earth. But go ahead, 17.
Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house.
See, we read this earlier in Luke 17, but this is exactly what it applies to. It don't actually apply particularly to the exact second coming of Jesus. It applied to this time with this abomination, which is preceding Jesus' second coming. Go ahead.
Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days.
Woe unto them that got a baby that's pregnant, or got a little baby they haven't weaned, they got to try to carry around, because if you trying to run and you got a little baby, that makes it hard. That makes life hard. Go ahead.
But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day.
Notice the Lord still talks about the Sabbath. That's why we still observe it. And he's talking about it surrounding the end of the world. Down to the end, down to the last days, down to these terrible times. That's why he said, pray ye that your flight be not in winter. We still got winter. We know what winter look like. And neither on the Sabbath day. So the Sabbath day is still significant. But why is all the urgency? And it all started at verse 15. We're going to read it again just to reiterate. Why is all the urgency, brothers and sisters? Go ahead.
Verse 21. For then shall be great tribulation.
For then, this is it, shall be great tribulation. Tribulation is just another word for trouble. Same way perilous is another word for trouble. Paul said, in the last days there shall be perilous times. The title is The Worst Time Ever, the end, perilous times. So that's why Jesus said, he calling it here. He said, for then shall be great tribulation. Like what? Go ahead.
Such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, nor ever shall be.
That's why I say the worst time ever. Jesus just said it. He said so much trouble, great tribulation, such as you haven't had since the beginning of the world. It's been some terrible times in this world. The flood with Noah, the fire and brimstone with Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah. Been some terrible times, but nothing like this. This is the worst time ever. He said great tribulation such as was not since the beginning of the world to that time, nor shall ever be again. So it'll be the worst time it's been or will ever be. That's what the title is, the worst time ever. How bad is it going to get? 22.
And except those days should be shortened, there should be no flesh be saved.
See, I told you, you know, technically going to Walmart and get shot is going to be the least of your problem when it get down to this. Because all of us will be destroyed if the Lord do not step in. This is what he's telling you. This is the worst time ever we talking about now. And he said, except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But what?
But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened.
Well, how they going to be short? What do you mean shorten the days? How is it going to short? Is the day the sun going to go down early? What do you mean? He mean Jesus going to come back. See, it all centers around him coming back. That's why he said, you're going to desire to see one of my days and you're not going to see it. And then he said all of a sudden he's going to come as the lightning. So you ain't got to think, well, they tell you, well, Jesus over there in the wilderness, or he over there in the temple. You ain't got to go for that. You'll be dealing with a false Jesus then. You're going to know Jesus because he's going to come through the sky and he's going to come in flame and fire to take over this world. And that's what he means. That's how the day is going to be short. He's going to interject himself right at the time where they will destroy us all. He's going to jump in. That's what he means. That's why I skipped down to verse 29. See, remember, brothers and sisters, this chapter, Matthew 24, we start off at verse 3, just to save a little time. You can read 1 and 2 on your own. But we start off at verse 3 where the disciples asked Jesus, point blank, what's going to be the sign of your coming and the end of the world? And he gave all of these terrible signs. And we didn't read them all. We skipped over to save some time and all that. But he gave all these terrible signs. Bad stuff. Famines, pests, and earthquakes. Nation against nation. Kingdom against kingdom. Much deception in my name. I skipped over verse 11 just to save time. He said, verse 11, many false prophets shall arise and deceive many. And verse 12 said, because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. Terrible times. Now, it's all leading up to him coming, though, so he got to come eventually. He got to come. That's what it means, shorten the day. So let's skip down to he coming, save a little time again, verse 29. Go ahead.
Immediately after the tribulations of those days.
Okay, so we saw it's going to be great tribulation like it's never been or never will ever be again, because the end of the world don't mean it's going to blow it all up. He's going to stop the madness and rebuild things. Time is going to go on. But it's going to be a new sheriff in town, and his name is Jesus. Some brother, I can hear some brother, that ain't his name. Look, we worry about that when you see him. Mm-hmm. Right now, that's what my Bible said. I'm going to stick with that. So it's going to be great tribulation like you have never seen. And then he coming back to put an end to it. So it says immediately after the tribulation of those days, shall what?
Shall the sun be darkened.
Shall the sun be darkened. Go ahead.
And the moon shall not give her light.
Uh-huh.
And the stars shall fall from heaven.
Go ahead.
And the powers of the heavens shall be shaken.
See, the sky rolling back, because now he's on his way now. He got to come. We read all the signs leading up to his coming, where he got to come. And all the signs is all highlighting the terrible times we living in. Leading us to the worst time ever. And now he come. Go ahead.
And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven.
See, now he coming. Then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. Go ahead.
And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn.
And what they going to see?
And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory.
He come with power and great glory. He coming to take over. He putting an end to the madness. He putting an end to the atrocities that's been going on in this world and getting worse and worse up until that point. Go ahead.
And he shall send his angel with a great sound of a trumpet.
He sending them angels. He got angels blowing trumpets. Keep that in mind. And the final one is going to be the climax. But he got 7 angels that's going to blow 7 trumpets. So he's sending his angels with a great sound of a trumpet. But what they going to do?
And they shall gather together his elect from the 4 winds, from one end of heaven to the other.
His elect is his chosen. He's going to gather his people together. And that starts, of course, if you don't know, it starts with Israel. That's the elect. Other people can join on, but he started with Israel. But now, skip over to back up to verse 15. I just want to reiterate this because this was the all-important verse that opened the door for that worst time ever. He said, when you see this, throw caution to the wind, drop everything, and run. Head for the hills. And he'll show you where you need to go at that point. But you got to be able, you got to drop everything. You got to be willing to leave everything. And some people won't be willing to do that. Like some people think, oh, that sounds like you're going to be in a cult and you're going to go with Jim Jones. No, I'm going to go with Jim Jesus. Because he the one said drop everything. But go ahead, verse 15.
When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet.
So you need to see, you need to be able to recognize it, brothers and sisters. This is one of the biggest signs in the Bible, and this is speaking about the end of the world. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, go ahead.
Spoken of by Daniel the prophet.
Daniel spoke about it. So Daniel spoke about the last days. So nothing wrong with going to read Daniel in the Old Testament, unless you let a preacher tell you the Old Testament don't matter no more, it's done away with. Then I'm telling you, you're listening to a false prophet. Because Jesus referring you to Daniel about the end of the world. So you let a preacher tell you the Old Testament done away with, he just duped you out of getting some understanding. But the Lord said, many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. Mm-hmm. When you therefore see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, do what?
Stand in the holy place.
Oh, it's going to stand in the holy place, whatever it is. It's going to stand in the holy place. You need to know that. Go ahead.
Whoso readeth, let him understand.
Then it followed, the urgency followed this sign to flee. Don't look back, drop everything and flee. Don't go back in your house even. That's how urgent it is. Don't even go back to get. He's telling you, throw caution to the wind. Don't even go get your 2-week notice on your job. Just quit. Just be gone. That's what he said. If you read verse 6, read 16 again.
Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains.
So he said, flee, run. And it's going to be trouble all over the world. Matter of fact, this trouble is coming on the whole world to try the whole world. It's called the hour of temptation. But he said, when you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand. Too many people read it, don't understand. Years ago, this was probably in the late 80s or 90s, I went to a church in Chicago because me and some of the brothers, me and this other brother, he live in Minnesota now, Jeroboam. He the pastor at the Israel of God in Minnesota. But me and him, this was like 89, somewhere up in there. We went to a church in Chicago on 75th Street, around close to Cottage Grove. And we went in that church because we was visiting churches trying to see if we could talk to people, tell them about the Lord. So we went to this church, and I was shocked because it was a Sunday, and they was reading the Bible. So I mean, talking about reading, like going over study. I was like, what kind of church is this? I'm used to them doing them phony sermons. So they reading the Bible, and they reading Matthew 24. Boy, my mouth started salivating. I was like, what? So they just read, and he explained a little bit. He just read, and he read this and read right past it. He had got some verses past verse 15. He got down a little bit, but then, because I was waiting to see if he's going to comment, he didn't comment, so I raised my hand, and that was his nightmare. Because he said, yes, how can I help you? I said, yeah, you read over verse 15, which we just read, and we're going to look at. I said, well, you read over verse 15, and it seemed kind of important. Can you explain it? And that guy was on the hot seat for real. But the good thing about it, he was humble. He didn't make nothing up, because a lot of times they'd make something up, but he was on the spot. So he looked down at it, and he read it, he mumbling to himself. We could all hear him. He said, when you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of. He knew he couldn't make nothing out of this. And he looked around, then he read, he put his head, when you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel. And he knew he couldn't come up with nothing. And I'm wondering, I'm like, what is he going to do? And finally he raised his head out the Bible. He said, no, I cannot. Can you? And I was, yes, I can. And I stood up, and he went into the church thing. I stood up and started talking. He said, no, come on up here, come on up. So I went up and started explaining it. Because how you going to read over the biggest sign in the history of man about the worst time ever, and Jesus said, whoso readeth, let him understand, and you don't get it. And so I went to explain it, and I read it, and I went to this scripture. We're going to go to Mark 13. We're going to go. I did this in this church. I got a witness. Brother Jeroboam will tell you I did. And it went so good, I didn't know what the guy was doing. It went so good, he asked me to come back and do a lesson, which I did. So I think it was on a Wednesday night, because this was a Sunday. So we read this, though. We're going to read it. Because this is how I explained it, to show that this is a much needed explanation. We need to understand that. Mark 13 and verse 14. Read that.
But when ye shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet.
See, it almost sounds exactly the same, but you get a little bit tidbit here and tidbit there. You get a little more. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand where?
Standing where it ought not.
Standing where it ought not. That's a little difference. Why? Because if you remember Matthew 24, verse 15, it said when you see the abomination of desolation standing where? In the holy place. See, it got specific, told you it's a holy place. This told you, it didn't get specific. It just said standing where it ought not. But it clarifies that this is a holy place where something or someone is at that they shouldn't be. That's what this letting you know. This is, in other words, this is not good. It can't be good. This is leading us to the worst time ever. This is what opened the door, because this is the sign that Jesus followed up by saying, flee, run, don't look back, drop everything. And we don't understand it. And there is no rapture, because if it was a rapture, brothers and sisters, Jesus wouldn't have said flee. He wouldn't have had to say flee. Nobody never told you you had to flee for the rapture, did you? Because there is no rapture. So he said, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing where it ought not. We already gathered it's a holy place. And most people don't understand where God got holy place and the significance of that. But it's a holy place that this individual ought not be. Standing where it ought not, then what?
Let him that readeth understand.
Let whoever read this, you need to figure it out. That's why I asked that preacher. I was within, my rights to ask him, because, hey, even though I knew, but you reading it, Jesus said everybody need to understand, and you read it, and your people still don't understand. They understood after I got through, though. Let him that read it understand it. Then what?
Then let them that be in Judea flee to the mountain.
Why he didn't say just look up, the rapture going to swoop you up? Why he said flee? Because that's the way the Lord works. You're going to have to do your own due diligence. He tell you what you need to do. He told Noah, I'm going to drown the earth, build the ark. Noah had to get to build it. Then he had to flee on the ark to hide, to be in safety. He told Lot in Sodom and Gomorrah, flee out of here, get out of here. Before I destroy this. I'm about to destroy this place. Where he's telling you here at this time, Jesus himself, this is not anybody. This is not another prophet. This is somebody. Everybody say they believe in Jesus. Do you believe this? Jesus said, head for the hills. That's what Jesus said. Let him that readeth understand, and then let them that be in Judea flee to the mount. So we picked up a little more, but let's do some, follow Jesus' instruction. Let's go to Daniel 11. Why I say follow his instruction? Because Jesus said it was spoken of by Daniel the prophet. So it makes sense for us to go read Daniel about this terrible time. Daniel 11. and 31. Now, keep in mind all the other signs he gave. Famines, pestilence, earthquake, wars and rumors of wars, nation rising against nation, kingdom against kingdom. But he climaxed it with that abomination of desolation standing in the holy place. And he said, run. And then he told you at verse 21, he said, for it shall be great tribulation, like it's never been before or would never be again. In other words, that is the worst time ever. And it starts with the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet. That's standing in the holy place or standing where it ought not. Daniel 11 and 31, read it.
An arm shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength. And shall take away the day to sacrifice, and shall place the abomination that maketh desolate.
See, Jesus, he can't lie. He said Daniel spoke about it, brothers and sisters. And here we're reading about it in Daniel. But we get a little more information. Just like we got the information, it's a holy place where it's going to stand. He ought not to be standing there. We get some information about it's about armies and stuff going, because it all centers around nations fighting each other and trying to have the ultimate control over everybody. So it said, arms shall stand on his part. That means he got power, he got arms. This individual, who we talking about? This is the world leader. Arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. That's the same thing Jesus told you about, the abomination of desolation. See, some of this have went on in history in the past, so it's going to kind of be a repeat in our days. It went on in the Greek Empire times. But he letting you know this is going to extend and basically repeat itself at the end. Same thing, because really technically the Bible says it's nothing new under the sun. So stuff that happened, it didn't kind of happen in one form or fashion already. But it's about a man with some power, and he's going to be trying to rule over more and more people, even to the point of taking over God's land. Because that's what this abomination of desolation is about. It's about God's holy land. That's why he said a holy place. It's about God's holy land. But skip down. We're going to skip down to the last days now. Verse 40. Skip down to verse 40, and we're going to know, because it's going to tell you that this is the end. The title is The Worst Time Ever. The End. Perilous Times. See, these are times we living in, brothers and sisters, now, and we leading to it just being out of control. Great tribulation. Go ahead, verse 40.
And at the time of the end,
see, it fast forwarded, because the stuff previously it was talking about back in the Greek Empire, back in the old days, similar things happened, but it fast forwarded, it said, and at the time of the end, some stuff is going to go. Remember, you got to bring in everything. That's why I mentioned the arms standing on this part, because we read about part of the signs is nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom, wars and rumors of war. See, all this is a part of it. So you name it, it's going bad. So at the time of the end, shall what happen again?
Shall the king of the south push at him.
The king of the south will push at him. Go ahead.
And the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, and with horsemen, and with many ships. And he shall enter into the countries, and shall overflow the pass over.
Okay, so now, to sum it up, brothers and sisters, because you got people fighting, of course, king of the south, king of the north. The king of the north is where this abomination is coming from. He's the abomination. And this is all, the stage is being set right now in Western Europe for this stuff. That's where it's being set. That's why America's on the downslide, and you're going to see more and more the European Union, the Euro, and all that they bring is going to be on the upswing. So, he said, the king of the south, which we ain't going to deal with all the particulars, but he going to get, in other words, this world leader, he going to get some opposition from somebody, mainly these people in Egypt, which is another thing, but they going to make a mistake by messing with him, and he said he going to bring the full force against him. This not even dealing with America. See, brothers thinking America's there. Look, America's only been around a few years, and the Lord didn't even think enough to put them in a lot of this prophecy, because America, when you look at the big spectrum of the Europeans, which is where it revolves around, the Gentile, America is just a leaf on that tree. Even though it's been the most powerful nation for the last couple of hundred years, but a couple of hundred years as opposed to 2,000 years, 2,500 years, that's nothing. So in a nutshell, America is just a leaf on the tree of Rome, really. So, he said he's going to come against them with everything, ships and horsemen, and he's going to enter into the country, the overflow and pass over. Now we have verse 41, because keep in mind, we're trying to get this abomination of desolation that Jesus said Daniel spoke about standing where it ought not, standing in the holy place. So we're going to understand that. Go ahead.
He shall enter also into the glorious land.
See, the glorious land is the holy land, brothers and sisters. That's the holy land. And that's where the holy place is at that he going to stand in. See, all this have a meaning. It's the holy land. Go ahead.
And many countries shall be overthrown.
Oh, they fighting. He knocking off countries. See, because that's the way you show your dominance. You got to beat up on some people. That's what he doing. Remember, kingdom against kingdom and all of that. Go ahead.
But these shall escape out of his hand.
And this got a reason why these escape. Because God got a place for his people. This is why Jesus said flee. That's another lesson. But Jesus didn't say flee for no reason. Go ahead.
Even Edom and Moab and the chief of the children of Ammon.
Pay attention. These are what we call Middle Eastern countries, even though there's no such thing as the Middle East technically. That's a made-up term they gave you to obscure the issue. That area is still what we call, what they name Africa. That's what that area is. That's a made-up term in the Middle East. There's no continent called the Middle East, technically. Either it's Africa or it's Asia, and the land of Israel, Egypt, all those on the African continent. Egypt, his original name is Mizraim, which was Ham's son. The promised land, original name before it became Israel, was Canaan, Ham's son, which we call Africans. So, when he say he gonna enter into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these are going to escape. These are countries surrounding the land of Israel. He's taking over that, but some of these surrounding countries, God going to have his people hiding there. And it won't be nothing they can do. We can tell them this. We can tell them, look, this is what God going to do. God don't care about telling you what he's going to do because you can't stop him. God told you the whole story. He put it in the book. He wrote it down, made sure it got written down, put it in the book, told you how the world going to end, tell you what he going to do. And he said, look, if you can stop me, stop me. I wrote it. I told you. I telegraphed all my plans, telling you what I'm going to do. That's why we know Jesus going to come take over this world. I can tell all the world governments Jesus going to crack that sky and come and take over this world. Stop him if you can. They ain't going to be able to stop him. That's what he going to do, though. People think that's a fairy tale. We're going to find out real soon. Go ahead, keep reading.
Verse 42. He shall stretch forth his hand also upon the country, and the land of Egypt shall not escape.
So this man is taking over places. This is what makes this the worst time ever. It's wars and rumors of wars. It's fighting left and right now. Full-fledged war. Because somebody want to rule the whole world, and everybody not going to lay down for that. Go ahead.
But he shall have power over the treasures of gold and of silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt. And the Libyan and the Ethiopians shall be at his steps.
So he taking over countries left and right, but go ahead.
But tiding out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him.
See, this coming from Russia, he going to counterbalance Western Europe with the Lord going to use Eastern Europe, Russia and China and all that. He going to use them to counterbalance things. But go ahead.
Therefore, he shall go forth with great fury to destroy and utterly to make away many.
Destroying many, but go ahead.
And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace.
This is what we want to get to. He going to plant his place of worship. He going to plant the tabernacles of his palace. He going to set up shop, in other words, between where?
Between the seas and the glorious holy mountain.
In the glorious holy mountain. See, now we're getting close to that holy place. Because the holy place got to be in the glorious holy mountain. It's only one. The Lord talking specifically here. The holy place. See, the Lord only had holy places in Jerusalem, brother. That's the glory. That's the holy land, the land of Israel, the capital of Jerusalem, holy city. And he had temple there, which is a holy place. That's what we're dealing with here. This is the abomination, desolation that's going to be in the holy place, standing in the holy place where he ought not, because that's an affront. That's a slap in God's face. So it said, verse 45 here, he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. Go ahead.
Yea, he shall come to his end, and none shall help him.
But the Lord going to bring him to his knees when he come. He going to come to his end. But this is where he going to end up at. You say, how can that be? I don't understand. Keep reading, 12 and 1. Let's go right into the 12th chapter because it's just a continuation. Go ahead.
And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time.
There go that worst time ever. And Matthew, Jesus made it clear in Matthew that it was since the beginning of the world, there hadn't been no time like this, and never will it be again. That's why I titled it The Worst Time Ever. So this is hitting on the same note. Michael going to stand up, the great prince. Michael is that angel to do the fighting. He going to stand up for the children of our people. And there shall be a time of trouble. Jesus called it great tribulation. Here in Daniel, it was already said. He just called it a time of trouble. What did he say? A time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even up to that same time. And Jesus went further and said, and never else will be again. Worst time ever. But then what? At that time what?
And at that time thy people shall be delivered. Everyone that shall be found written in the book.
See, the Lord going to start to deliver his people. Because now we down to the end now. Jesus coming. Remember, he's going to send his angels. He's going to gather his elect. He delivering his people. This is the time. But let's make sure, because Jesus can't lie. He said it was spoken of by Daniel the prophet. Let's read a little more. At the same time, though, we're going to skip to verse 11. Go ahead, read it.
And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away.
That's something Jesus didn't mention, but we know it got to happen. Because when they reestablish this holy place, they are also going to reestablish this worship in the Holy Land, killing animals and all of that. They on the brink of doing that now. They working on it. They going to get it done. And once they reestablish it, God going to let this wicked man take it away and stop it, because all of them out of line. The people that's doing the sacrifice don't need to do it. And this man probably got enough sense to know that. He going to stop him, but he out of line too, because he trying to act like he God. So that's the key. That goes along with the abomination desolation. He going to stop the sacrifice. So it said from that time and from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away. But he adds something else. What?
And the abomination that maketh desolate set up.
And the abomination that maketh desolate set up. That's what we looking for. Jesus said it was spoken of by Daniel the prophet. Now we're getting a time frame on it. From the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken, and the abomination that make it desolate set up. Where is it set up at? In the holy place, or as Mark said, where it ought not. Standing in the holy place. Standing where it ought not. But Daniel is giving you a time frame that how long this is going to last once it happens. The Lord spelled all this out. And we're going to see it's consistent. That's the thing. When you read things in the Bible, you let the Bible interpret itself. It's going to be consistent. So you know you're getting the word of the Lord, not some word of some pastor making stuff up. And from the time that the day's sacrifice shall be taken away and the abomination that make it desolate set up, how long?
There shall be 1,290 days.
1,290 days. 1,290 days. That is approximately 3.5 years. He got an extra month on there from what we read somewhere else. 60 days because of that daily sacrifice. So he added time for that. But overall, we're dealing with 3.5 years. 1,290 days. So that means this is the daily sacrifice is being taken away. And then probably 30 days later, the man is literally moving his shop, moving his setup over to Jerusalem. He's going to leave Rome, move to Jerusalem, have images and stuff there and all that. Because that's what they do. They worship images. But now, let's go further. Go to 2 Thessalonians 2. I made a mistake and left Psalm in there from last week because I was typing over last week's lesson. Psalm shouldn't have been in there. Should have erased that. So 2 Thessalonians 2. 2 Thessalonians 2 and 1. Paul made it clear. Paul is the clearest as all on this because it might be hard to understand the abomination of desolation staying in the holy place. But Paul going to make it so clear that you can't miss it. But when you put it all together with this, that's what lets you know the urgency of it. 2 Thessalonians 2, the 2nd chapter, and 1, verse 1. Go ahead.
Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, and by our gathering together unto him, that ye be not soon shaken in mind, or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter as from us, as that the day of Christ is at hand.
Okay, don't worry about people telling you about the day of Christ at hand before it's at hand, because people will lie to you. Many false prophets have told people, just like people follow Jim Jones, he made them think the world was about to end, and people been doing that. Look, the world gonna end. Jesus gonna come, but you got certain signs to know when it's gonna happen. You got to follow the sign. Then you won't be misled by a false prophet. See, that's why we ain't doing nothing but reading the Bible. You can call me a false prophet if you want, but I'm showing you what the Bible says. So, just like Paul was saying, he said, look, don't be led astray about the day of Christ being at hand. What? Verse 3.
Let no man deceive you by any means.
See, he warned you of deception. That's what true servants of God, they're going to warn you about the deception. Go ahead.
For that day shall not come.
The second coming of Jesus, Christ coming back, shall not come until certain things happen. Like what? Go ahead.
Except there come a falling away first. And that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition.
See, the things that they taught in Paul's day and the apostles' day, people have fell clean away from that. People don't know what day the Sabbath day is. They don't know about God's dietary law. Paul and all the apostles kept it. They don't know about the holy days. Paul and all the apostles kept them. They don't know about the laws, period, that you should observe God's holy law. They fell away from it. They making up other stuff. You got other holidays that man then gave you. You done away with how you should eat animals. You eating anything, saying pray over it. Paul didn't believe that. Paul didn't never eat no pork. Peter didn't eat no pork. Even when the Lord sent a sheet down to teach him to preach to some Gentiles, which was the big revelation,